Philip Lowe, the governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia, once stated, "The best form of welfare is a job." But what happens when the system itself calls for a significant number of people to be jobless? Welcome to the intriguing paradox of unemployment in Australia. On one hand, we have the Reserve Bank of Australia, or the RBA, asserting that an unemployment rate of at least 4.5% is necessary to keep inflation under control. On the other hand, we have the current unemployment rate hovering around 3.6%. To reach the RBA's desired rate, an additional 140,000 Australians would need to lose their jobs. It's a peculiar situation, isn't it? An institution that aims to foster stability within our economy, actively advocating for a higher rate of unemployment. But why? Well, the RBA believes this is the key to exerting downward pressure on wage growth, thereby keeping the ever-looming threat of inflation at bay. This isn't a novel concept. It's a model that has been widely accepted for more than half a century. But the question begs to be asked, is it still relevant today? Does our modern dynamic economy necessitate such a rigid approach? As we grapple with these questions, we must also consider the human cost, the individuals who form that 4.5%, the people who, according to this model, must be jobless in order for the rest of the economy to thrive. Is it fair? Is it just? And so we find ourselves in a state of paradox. The very institution tasked with fostering economic stability is calling for more individuals to be out of work. Meanwhile, the people caught in this economic crossfire suffer the consequences. The question remains, is maintaining a certain level of unemployment the only way to keep inflation in check? While the RBA maintains its stance, the plight of the unemployed in Australia is far from easy. Indeed, the journey of a job seeker in Australia is fraught with challenges. Chief among these is the financial struggle. The job seeker rate in the country, a monetary assistance provided to those actively seeking employment, falls significantly short of the poverty line, as defined by several leading economists and welfare groups. This means that even with this aid, many Australians are living in conditions that are far from ideal, struggling to make ends meet. This level of financial support, or rather, the lack thereof, is not an oversight, but a conscious decision made by the government. They defend this state of affairs, painting it as a form of tough love. The idea is to spur people on to get a job, to keep them from getting too comfortable with the safety net of welfare. Multiple ministers have voiced this perspective, arguing that the struggles faced by those on unemployment benefits are necessary to motivate job seeking. However, this stance has not been without its critics. Many argue that this tough love approach is less about motivation and more about punishment. They suggest that the government is penalizing those who are already in a difficult situation. The struggle to find employment is hard enough without having to worry about basic survival. Yet, that is the harsh reality for many unemployed Australians. Moreover, the narrative that unemployment benefits make people too comfortable is challenged by those who have experienced the realities of unemployment. They attest to the inadequacy of the financial support, sharing stories of the struggles they faced while actively seeking employment. It's a clear indicator that the current system is far from a comfortable safety net. In the end, the unemployed in Australia find themselves in a paradoxical situation. On one hand, they are needed for the economy to function according to the RBA's blueprint. On the other, they are punished for their status, left to navigate a tough financial landscape with inadequate support. It seems the unemployed are caught in a catch-22 situation, required by the economy, yet punished for their status. In this economic blueprint, it seems there are those who are sacrificed for the greater good. It's a scenario shaped by the Reserve Bank of Australia's concept of full employment, a concept that, interestingly, doesn't mean every able-bodied Australian has a job. Rather, it suggests that a significant number of Australians must remain jobless to keep the economy in check. Consider a hypothetical case of John, an Australian who lost his job just as the RBA raised interest rates. The company he worked for couldn't handle the increased financial pressure and had to let a number of employees go. John, like many others, became part of the necessary unemployment statistics, a casualty of economic maneuvers designed to control inflation. But let's take a step back and examine this strategy. The RBA, in its quest to bring inflation back to its targeted 2 to 3% band, uses interest rates as a lever. By increasing the cost of borrowing, it slows down economic activity. Businesses tighten their belts, consumers spend less, and demand drops. However, this strategy has a domino effect. Faced with higher costs, businesses are forced to make tough decisions. Often they have to let go of their employees, adding to the unemployment rate. The individuals affected, like John, are left to navigate the difficult and often punishing landscape of unemployment. These individuals, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, are the sacrificial lambs of our economy, victims of a system that seems to require their sacrifice for the greater good. They are the living testament of the bittersweet paradox of full employment, where their joblessness is deemed necessary for the economy's overall health. The economic machine, it seems, requires a certain number of its cogs to remain idle. Caught in this paradox, where does this leave Australia and its citizens? An unsettling question that echoes in the corridors of power and the corners of society. Accusations fly thick and fast, with successive governments criticized for their seeming lack of action on the issue. The narrative is heavy with the angst of the unemployed, the frustration of economists, and the silence of the decision makers. This isn't a simple game of numbers and figures. It's about people's lives. It's about the mother struggling to put food on the table, the graduate unable to find their first job, the older worker made redundant and left on the fringes. These are the faces behind the statistics, the stories behind the economic models. So, how do we move forward? The challenge lies in finding a balance that manages inflation without turning a blind eye to those out of work, a balance that fosters growth, yet ensures no Australian is left behind, a balance that, while acknowledging the realities of the economy, also recognizes the dignity and worth of every individual. In the words of Robert Sudha Hamilton, unemployment is not a crime, it's a tragedy. The challenge is to navigate this tragedy without sacrificing the welfare of individuals.